All right, everybody, good evening. Uh, Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the organizers in the Writers Guild member organizing department. Um, I want to first thank the folks from the Pension and Health Fund for joining us tonight. Obviously, this training could not happen without you. And so, this is going to be a sort of series that we do until we can return to meetings in person. But it's our goal to provide you with information on the Guild, upcoming events and trainings and ways to plug in sort of while we're all forced to work remotely. So this is kind of how this evening is going to look. I'm going to first pass this to Don, who will talk about contributions. Then Jennifer is going to talk about employer compliance. And then Chris and Paula will be talking about benefits. That should take us through the first hour, and then we'll be open for Q&A. So please save your questions till the end. We should have plenty of time to get through them. If we don't, we can follow up through emails. And also, this is being recorded. So if you have anyone in your network who tried to attend and wasn't able to tonight, this will be available for a brief period of time after tonight for people that missed it. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Dawn, and please take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. It's so nice to be here with everybody. My name is Dawn Clark, and I work with the Writers Guild Pension and Health Fund in the Contributions Department. I'm here to speak on behalf of the manager of that department, Marla Jones, who I'm sure you'll be meeting and talking to as time goes by. Tonight, what I'd like to do is talk to you about the life cycle, so to speak. That's what all of us are here to share with you. The contributions department is the beginning point in that life cycle because things start with this department. Let me give you an example. So you have been hired to perform writing services. You have a job. Congratulations. That is exciting. And that is the starting point for everything else to flow from. That company is, of course, responsible as a signatory company for making contributions on your Writers Guild covered compensation. That's an obligation. That is what the company has signed up for. And that's a very important component. So say, for instance, you're hired to perform a story in a teleplay. You start with the story, you commence, contributions are due based on your commencement, what you've earned on that money. Let me give you a timeline as to when those contributions really should come to the Pension and Health Fund. Those contributions should get here at, say, for instance, you started this month, the month of February. The company has until the 24th of the following month, which would be March, to make those contributions in a timely fashion. So that's something that they would need to really be on top of. It's important, of course, because it's a pay-as-you-go type of scenario. So as you're earning the money, the company needs to be proactive in making those contributions on your behalf. So you get to the point where you earn at least the minimum or exceed that minimum to qualify for health fund coverage, which at this point is a little bit, it's in the $40,000 ballpark, and Paula would be able to give you the exact number. So what happens is that the company, either on their own or sometimes they will engage a payroll company to make those contributions on your behalf, like an Entertainment Partners, Cast and Crew, those kinds of companies. And once you get to that point of qualifying, then you'll be notified by the eligibility department. But this is something that's very important. The contributions coming into the contributions department is key, but we always encourage you as the writers to be proactive and to keep an eye out for you when those contributions should be here, because you know that you've been earning that money. So you want to make sure that the company is making those contributions. So please feel free to contact the contributions department and just make sure that they're on top of it. You feel like you know that you have earned that 40,000. Make sure that they've been making contributions on your behalf. And the contributions department is here to help. We will investigate, make sure those contributions are here. A lot of times they are, because it's a matter of timing, because of that cycle that they have. They may not hit, so to speak, your account right away. They may not hit, within the next week or so, but within the next 4 weeks or maybe 5, in that time frame, they should have been made. So it may take a little bit of time after that for everything to eventually be allocated to your account, but it should be happening as a matter of course. And it's always good to be proactive, like you are now in attending this meeting and asking the contributions to check on your behalf. And we're more than happy to make sure that that is happening on your behalf. So that's the contribution element of it, where contributions are coming in to the contributions department. But another thing that the contributions department does is help you with the signatory component. So of course there's a signatory department at the Guild, but we help with coordinating that, because contributions need to be made by signatory companies, and they can only be accepted once the company is signatory. So of course you're going to want to make sure that you're working for signatory companies. If there's some kind of a glitch there, then contributions would be very happy to reach out to the signatories department. We are in constant communication with the writers and signatories department to make sure that everything is on target, so that those companies are indeed signatory and the contributions can be accepted and processed. So that's another component to the contributions department that's very important to this process. Contributions also handles other types of accounts receivable. As time goes on, you're going to learn more about that. For instance, with dependent care premiums, the contributions department is the department that handles the acceptance of those particular payments, at least receives them. So it's involved in that part of it as well. And then of course it's coordinating with eligibility very closely. Another component of the contributions department is the audit.
Sorry, Don, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes, please.
I'm so sorry. It sounds like you're hitting your mic on something, so you're kind of coming in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you hear me at all?
Yeah, it's just sort of like kind of fluttering.
There's some kind of interference. Okay, what about now? Can you is there not interference, or do you still hear that?
Much better.
Okay, good. Oh, thank you so much for telling me. All right, excuse me. So the next component I wanted to talk with you about is the audit component. There are auditors in the contributions department that are very proactive. So what the concept is that we're auditing first and foremost ahead of time, so to speak, to make sure that companies are getting things right before they get them wrong. So if there's anything that we can do to help that process along from the beginning, the better it is for everybody, most importantly for the writers, because that makes sure that the contributions come in a timely fashion and correctly. So this department is very active in contacting signatory companies when they first become signatory, and also as they re-sign and become signatory again, to make sure that if there are any questions, that we are able to answer them, to let them know how they can go about making the contributions correctly, the business rules that they need to follow, so that the contributions that are made can be allocated to your accounts sooner than later. So that's another part of it. Jennifer, of course, is going to be speaking more about the entire audit program, because employer compliance manages the entire audit piece, but the contributions department does have auditors that work with the contributions elements of auditing and trying to get ahead of the game, so to speak, up front. Something I'd like to share with you that is also important is a topic of what is subject to pension and health fund contributions and what's not. Because there are certain compensation, certain types of compensation that of course would be WGA covered. This would include writing services like stories and teleplay screenplays, rewrites, polishes, formats in the television world, Bibles. All of these are, of course, covered writing services. There are services that are involved. And we want to keep in mind that with the pension and health fund benefit, that is denoting an employer-employee relationship. So these are hired writing services, of course, works for hire, which of course is one of the bread and butter pieces of guild work. These hired writing services really denote employment. And so the contributions are made on fee compensation that you earn for writing employment. Let me give you an example. There's such a thing as options, which of course we're all familiar with, but an option alone is not a writing service. So when something's optioned, when you option a screenplay, that's wonderful because that begins the process. But the money that you earn for the option alone is not considered guild covered compensation. But what makes the money that you earn for an option reportable in a de facto way is when it is carved out of, so to speak, a purchase, and then you are later hired or somehow hired to perform some kind of writing service in connection with that purchase. You're either hired to rewrite it or polish it, but there is employment. And that's very important because the pension and health fund cannot collect contributions on purchases alone because it's not employment. And so that's something to really keep in mind. You want to make sure that you, the people that are representing you, are making sure that there is employment involved so that that money that you earn for the purchase option will be reportable to the plan. It's something that's so important to keep in mind. There have been many phone calls that I have been a part of and that my colleagues have been a part of, and the managers here have been a part of, where there's only a purchase. And it breaks our heart because we can't collect contributions on behalf of the writers, which means eligibility as far as health fund coverage is concerned, and also pension benefits. So wanted to just mention that that's very important to keep that in mind and to make sure that that is something that would be part of your writing services contracts or your writing deals. Another thing is that there's a component of when you earn the money. So as an example, money is considered earned for pension and health fund purposes when what happens first between or among the following events occurs. Did you earn the money as a writer by rendering some kind of writing service? As an example, did you commence, or did you deliver, or did you execute the contract? Whatever it is that triggers that service to be considered performed would be considered the earning date, whenever that occurred. Or were you paid some kind of an advance, as an example? An advance against services. Say, for instance, for whatever reason, you and the company negotiate for you to be paid in advance of starting. Well, in that particular case, of course, that's what happened first. So what you want to keep in mind is what happened first. What date was the action that triggered your earning the money, and what was it that happened first? The reason that's important is because you are given credit for earning that money during that particular quarter when the event happened. So, you are looking at what happened first. Let me give you an example of that. Say you commence services in the month of February, this month, you commenced your writing services, but for some reason, the company was late paying you. Now, that's not a good scenario, but of course it could happen. So they pay you in August, in April, as an example. So you earned it in the first quarter of the year, but they were late paying you and they paid you in April. Well, that, even though they paid you in April, you earned it in February. So the money would be credited to you, or it would be allocated to your account as earned in the first quarter. So late payment, well, even though that is distressing, does not necessarily mean that everything is lost, because contributions would be credited to the period that you earn the money. So it's important to keep that in mind as well. And you want to make sure that you're tracking that, because it needs to be allocated to the proper time period so that earnings can be or compensation can be credited to you appropriately. That's important as well. One thing I wanted to mention that is that the telephone lines to the pension and the health fund are open 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5. And we are looking forward to hearing from you, to getting your concerns and questions so that we can provide assistance and insight and help. This is a relationship that is starting now, but it's continuing. And it's very important for it to continue. We want to be there for you to help you throughout your career. So please, please feel free to contact us. Let us know what your concerns are and your questions. If any questions come up this evening, please let us know, and we'll get back to you with answers that are applicable to your particular situation. One thing to keep in mind also, and Paula will be in a better position to talk more about this with more detail, is the retroactive component of coverage. So say, for instance, for some reason, the company was late making those contributions, as we had talked about, you would be credited for the time period that you earned the money, and your coverage may be retroactive to a certain point in the past. If that occurs and you have come out of pocket in any way for coverage, then eligibility would coordinate with you to reimburse you for that. But it's important to keep abreast of this, because you're having coverage for its start. Well, your coverage starting maybe 6 months after it really should have. You're knowing that it has started 6 months into it can be distressing. So you want to, so it's a very good thing to take advantage of the resources that we have to help you to stay current and make sure that your coverage is happening as it should. So I also wanted to just mention that as a very important heads up. We're here to help with that. So there's something else to keep in mind, and that is a concept that is referred to as the ceiling. You may have heard of this already, but you're going to hear about this a lot during your career. The ceiling is the maximum amount upon which contributions are due for any particular project. So, and just about every project has a ceiling. As an example, if you're working with theatrical motion picture projects, there is a pension ceiling and a health fund ceiling. The pension ceiling is the first $225,000 of Writers Guild covered compensation that you earn for that project, for that theatrical motion picture project. The health fund ceiling is slightly higher. it's the first $250,000. So all of the money that you earn up to those amounts would be subject to pension and health fund contributions. This could include the initial compensation, absolutely, but it may include bonuses, production bonuses that you may earn on that project. So that's something to keep in mind as well. As long as that money's under that ceiling, it would be subject to pension and health fund contributions, and contributions should be made on your behalf. So if for instance, you earn $500,000 on a theatrical motion picture project, congratulations, that's wonderful. But please keep in mind that after you hit the first 225,000 for the pension, the first 250 for health, the company is not obligated to make those contributions on your behalf. So that could explain why contributions wouldn't be made if you have gone over that amount. Television has ceilings too, generally speaking. For pilots, it's the first 225,000 if it's a 60-minute pilot, the first 170,000 if it's a 30-minute pilot. But when you're on a show, a series, each episode has its own ceiling, and that's determined by comparing two things: a calculation and initial compensation, whatever is greater. I'm not going to go into detail with that because that could be something for a later day, but I'll just say something quickly. The calculation that is used is 250% times the applicable minimum or for the services that you are contracted for. So doing a comparison between those two things, that calculation initial compensation, we're taking the greater amount, and that's the maximum amount upon which contributions are due. If your initial compensation is not greater than that, then you're going to have room, so to speak, under that ceiling for residuals to be reported on your behalf if they are subject residuals. And subject residuals would include if you're working on a network show or an other than network show, like a basic cable show, that would be basic cable residuals, network residuals, foreign television residuals. All of those kinds of residuals would be considered subject residuals, like with like, so to speak. If it's a supplemental market residual, as an example, if the initial market was a basic cable outlet, then a new media residual, even though it's great to be paid for that, would not be considered subject residuals because it would be considered a supplemental market. So those are some things to keep in mind, but you don't want to ever leave money on the table. So residuals, in many cases, are subject to pension and health fund contributions. The company should be making contributions on those. If they're not, then the pension and health fund department can help you make sure that those contributions are made. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you want to make sure that all the contributions that should be made on your behalf are made, that's a very, very important component to these benefits. So without further ado, I am going to yield the floor, so to speak, or yield the airways to the manager of the Employer Compliance Department, Jennifer Parsoneau. Nice to see everybody. Take good care. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to call the Contributions Department. Again, my name is Dawn Clark.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. That was great. A lot of useful, important information. So as Dawn explained, a contributions department take in the payments that employers are supposed to make willingly as part of their obligation as a signatory. They're supposed to make them in a timely manner, and everything should be running smoothly, but that's not always the case. The Employer Compliance Department handles all of your inquiries regarding reportable earnings, possible delinquencies, anything that you feel might be missing from your record. And if you've ever had the PWGA bill an employer on your behalf, that's been done by employer compliance. We have audit programs. We audit all employers, smalls and mediums, in-house. We also have a CPA firm that audits the studios and networks, large companies, and then we bill the companies for the findings. A lot of billing and collecting. We're very, very busy. We also do switches. If a company misreports, say you earned the money in January, and they report to us and report it as April earnings, we would make the adjustments to correct your record. We also handle some refunds, and we do lots and lots of residual audits, as well as writer-owned companies. So as I said, employers try to get it right, but oftentimes they just don't. So the PWGA sends out pension statements and health fund statements to all of its participants, and those are for you to check over. And if you discover a discrepancy on your statement, or if you log into the PWGA website, into your account, and think that something's missing, you would contact employer compliance. You would provide us a copy of your contracts and evidence of payment, or if it's a residual audit, your episodic contracts and your residuals runs, and we would audit the findings to determine if the money is reportable, if it's missing and due, or if it's in-house and hasn't been processed yet. 8 times out of 10, it's not in-house, so we will bill on behalf and collect. Excuse me. It's very important, as Dawn said, about the contributions, which are the items that get you your benefits. And she talked a little bit about what is reportable, what is subject to contributions. So flat deals, theatrical motion pictures, treatments, first drafts, final drafts, revisions, polishes are all known as work for hire. In television, there's stories, teleplays, rewrites, polishes, pilots, Bibles, narration, and treatments. And flat deals also include new media projects. Dawn also mentioned the option, which is a great way to start a project, but it's money that's paid to you so that the studio can hold your project for a set amount of time to decide if they want to produce it. And that option money is not reportable. It's usually carved out of a purchase. So if you have a carve out, and you also have a rewrite or polish attached to that deal, then that purchase would become reportable at the time of the services. So it's very important when you're negotiating, you've got this great script and you're shopping it around and you've got some interest and a company wants to purchase your script, negotiate a rewrite or polish into your deal. That way your services are obviously reportable, and then your purchase up to ceiling would be reportable, and that's a win-win. And as far as the whole purchase, when it's reportable, if your script is purchased before any services are done, the purchase becomes reportable when the services are performed. So if a company buys your script in January, but then hires you to do the polish in August, the whole thing is reportable in August. The flip side of that, if you're hired to do the services in January and the studio's knocked out and they purchase the project and they purchase it in August, then the purchase becomes reportable in August at the time it's paid. Other types of reportable earnings include theatrical week to week, 14K, which is showrunners, writer-producers, story editors, 14E2 deals, which are overall deals, development deals at a studio, informational contract, interactive contracts, PBS, documentaries, and news writers. So this is all important information, and it's also very important to know that everything you earn is going to be reportable or subject to contributions. As Dawn mentioned, there's ceilings on everything. There's a cap. Under the 2020 agreement, the theatrical cap for pension is the first $225,000, and for the health, it's the first $250,000. If you're part of a team of two, that's enough for $112,500 for pension and $125,000 for health. And TV also has caps on their episodes. It's a little bit more of a complex calculation, but what it comes down to is it's either the initial or 2.5 times the non-network minimum for services provided, whichever is greater. And usually with network television, they usually pay the network minimums pretty much regularly, unless you're a high earner. And if the ceiling episode is greater than what you've been paid for your initial comp, then there's room for some residuals, reportable residuals like free TV and free foreign, and there's also room for some bonus up to ceiling. And if you're on a series and you're writing multiple episodes on that series, each one of those episodes has its own ceiling. And then we get to pilots. Pilots used to be 100% reportable, meaning if you got paid $750,000 to write a pilot, that entire amount of money was reportable to the plans, and those were good old days. But through one of the negotiations, it was decided to, so the current 30-minute or less is capped at $170,000, and if it's a team of 3, it's doubled at $340,000. And then for more than 30 minutes, 60 minutes, it's $225,000, and then $450,000 for a team of 3. If you are working on an MOW, which used to be a lot more popular than they are now, the ceiling is $250,000 of the applicable non-network minimum, but not to exceed $225,000 pension and $250,000 health. And miniseries have one ceiling per project, not per segment. So timing is everything with the plans here. Your earnings are tied to when you do your services, not when you get paid, not when the company eventually pays us, or any of the above. So if you're paid, if you do your commencement in January, and for whatever reason the studio pays you for that commencement in April, and then for whatever reason studio is late paying us and they pay us in July for the P&H due on your commencement, even though we got that in July and you were paid in April, that money is allocated to the first quarter because that's when you did your services. The exception to that, of course, is advances. They're paid, they're reportable when they're paid. So it's really, really important to keep track of all of your correspondence that you have with your employer. A lot of times an employer will shoot an email to the manager or agent or to the writer saying, we like your idea, go ahead and start. It's important to keep those. Those have a date stamp. In the event, the scenario I just described earlier, where the company pays us and misreports, with that information, that correcting information, we can make the adjustment. And anytime there is a discrepancy in timing, we do have to go back to the employer as well, just to make sure that we're getting the information. So you really want to stay on top of your earnings. We have a portal on our website on pwgaplans.org. You can go there, create a username and password. You can see all of your active contributions. At at 2 o'clock in the morning, if something comes to mind and you're wondering if Warner Brothers paid on your commencement, you can log in and see that it's there and then sleep peacefully. Or if it's not there, make a note to call us in the morning and provide us your contract and payment information so we can open a claim and see if this money is, and if it's here, and if it's not, we can bill and get that bill out there as soon as possible. Also check your statements that we send you. They're very important. I know looking at mail sometimes, it piles up on a desk, but when you get your statements from us, please do check those. And then give us a call. Employer always available. We're on the phones 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, talking to our participants, answering questions, looking for earnings. And then if you have, if we've billed on your behalf and you haven't heard anything, please feel free to check in. We're very proactive with chasing the employers, and we're very, aggressive as far as collecting, with a smile on our face. But and most employers, they don't get it right because they just don't understand the rules, or they change personnel, and the previous person knew how to do everything. The new person has no clue, or, and we've heard this one too, well, we didn't like the script, so we're not paying the contributions. But that's, we don't get involved in that. That's, you know, they are signatory, they're obligated by the MBA, and they're obligated by Article 17 to pay the P&H. So you really want to make sure that you're of your contributions. Also, with our active audit programs, we are looking for stuff behind the scenes at all times too. So we'll often discover discrepancies on our own, get a bill out, collect on your behalf, send you a letter that we've received this money, and you'll call us saying thank you because I had no idea. So please feel free out to employer compliance at any time with any questions you have, and we're happy to take your calls and answer your emails. And thanks for allowing us to do this evening. It's very enjoyable. And now I'm going to turn it over to is it Paula or Chris next?
Paula, yeah.
Paula Jones, who's the manager of the eligibility department. And take it away, Paula.
Thanks, Jen. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine. So I'm here to basically, talk to you about how coverage begins and how you maintain that coverage from year to year, hopefully throughout the lifetime of your career. So as Don and Jennifer both indicated, when you're hired to work for a signatory company, they have to report both pension and health contributions on your subject compensation. And so for the purposes of earning health fund coverage, we will combine up to 4 consecutive quarters worth of earnings to, allow you to meet that minimum. So, for example, if you earned $13,000 in November, and then you earned $10,000 this month, and then you earn, $30,000 April 15th, then we're going to take the money you earned in November, the money you earned this month, and combine it with the money that you earned in April. And because you satisfied the minimum in April and it is within a 4-quarter period, then we will say, oh, great, you satisfied the minimum in April, which is the 2nd quarter, which means the 3rd quarter will be the lag or the processing period. That's the time that we need for all of the employers to make those contributions to the plan. And then coverage would start on October 1st. So there's always that 1-quarter processing period. So you need to keep that in mind. If you have estimated that you're going to, whatever quarter you estimate that you're going to meet that minimum, which currently is $39,858, then the next quarter is your wait, and then your coverage starts. When coverage starts, it's always for a period of 1 year. So it's going to be, April 1st to March 31st, or July 1st to June 30th, October 1st to September 30th, January 1st to December 31st. So it always starts on the commencement of a quarter and runs for 1 year. Now, once you become eligible, you then actually automatically have an earning cycle. And that is going to be the period that you're going to want to meet that minimum again so that you have the next year of coverage. And so I'll do the easiest one because it can sometimes get confusing, but we have that information available online and you can also call us at any time. But let's say, for instance, your coverage started on April 1st of this year, and it's going to go through March 31st of 2022. And you want to know, okay, what is my earning cycle to make sure that I'm going to be covered beyond that date? Well, that earning cycle will be any money earned between January 1, 21 and December 31, 21. Again, there's always that 1 quarter lag. So you got to satisfy the minimum by 12/31 of this year. First quarter would be that processing period for the coverage to start on April 1 of next year. So whenever you establish coverage, you automatically establish an earning cycle. And if you're ever not sure of what that cycle is, by all means, give us a call. We can let you know that quickly, and clarify that for you. So whenever there is a question of that, or whether or not you're going to make it, within that time. We're all here, as Don and Jennifer said, to discuss that stuff with you guys. So we want you guys to become friends with us. We want you guys to, to show up, to call, to email, to stay in touch with us, because we're here to help you guys figure that stuff out. What's also cool about your world of writing is that oftentimes you'll find that perhaps you didn't meet your minimum by your earning cycle and your coverage ends, but because we're always doing that 4 quarter consecutive period that we're taking that look back, oftentimes our writers find that they're only without coverage for 1 quarter and then they start back up again. So maybe you didn't quite satisfy it by the time your earning cycle ended, and maybe it was just the next quarter. So you might find that for 3 months, you're going to, pay for Cobra, or maybe, go out to the marketplace, or maybe you have other coverage through a spouse or through one of the other plans. But oftentimes you may find that you're only without health fund coverage for maybe 3 months or 6 months, and then you come back on again. And so in this world, there is a lot of that on and off again and changing of eligibility cycles and earning cycles. And it's just based on, how your earnings are falling. But it's definitely key to always keep in mind what the current earnings cycle, what the current earnings minimum is, so that when you're negotiating, when you're getting these jobs and when you're trying to negotiate things, that you try to want to make, sure when at all possible, that you're going to qualify for health fund coverage, with that particular project. I know you've heard us talk a lot about how you can check your earnings and things online. So what is crucial for you to be able to register online is for you to get your health fund ID number, which we call an alternate ID. We do not ever use your social security number for any kind of login information or that we send to you. That's protected information. So the moment that the first contribution comes into the plan on your behalf, then you become a plan participant. Regardless of whether you've earned the minimum yet or not, you've become a plan participant because that contribution for pension and health came in. That means that at that time, your record is created in our system and that alternate ID number is created, it's generated. So you can give us a call, ask us for that number, and if we show that you're in the system because that contribution came in, then we can give you that number, and then you'll be able to register on our website. We definitely highly recommend that you do. You can also make things like address changes online. You can, as Jennifer said, you can send us emails if you have questions. You can see if those contributions have been received, all those kind of things. The other thing that you can do online is you can pay for dependent premiums. And so that's a good segue to talk about dependent coverage. Once you become eligible for coverage, and our eligibility packet is sent to you, there's a pocket called important information. And in that pocket are things like your beneficiary forms that we would like for you to fill out in return. And there's also information about adding dependents on the plan. Under the health fund, your legal spouse, your dependent children, whether they be natural born, adopted, foster, stepchildren, but your dependent children and your legal spouse are are all considered eligible dependents to add to the plan. Um, you must be legally married. I know there are other companies, other places that do things differently, but at the fund office, you do need to, if you're adding a legal spouse, if you're adding that child, dependent child, there are proof documents that we do request, which is a copy of that certified marriage certificate, a copy of the birth certificates, things like that. We do require proof documents. Now, adding dependents is timing, and timing is really crucial. So you must add your dependents within 30 days of your eligibility start date or within 30 days of the life event, meaning, let's say, for instance, that your coverage started on January 1st of this year, and on March 28th, you have a new baby. Then it would be 30 days from the birth of that child that you would need to add that dependent. Um, so if you already have existing dependents and you do not add them within that first 31 days that your coverage started, then you would have to wait until open enrollment, which is at the end of the year, to add them January 1st the next year. The only other exception to that would be another life event, which would be that if they were covered, say, for instance, under your spouse's plan, and that coverage ended, then you could, within 31 days of that coverage ending, you provide us with proof, that letter of termination that says what date the benefits ended. Then we could add them to the plan based on that life event happening. So timing is crucial. So when you become eligible for the health fund coverage, there is no cost to you as the participant, the rider participant, other than annual deductibles and insurance co-payments and things that you would be responsible for. But when you add your dependents, there is a quarterly premium. It's $150 a quarter, which is equal to $50 a month. And that is to cover all of your dependents. So whether you had one or you have 15, it's $150 a quarter. I mean, you can't beat that anywhere you go. That's for sure. So if you have dependents when you become eligible, you want to get those dependents added. It's really, such a good deal, that it's kind of a no-brainer to whether to add them or not. Once you've added your dependents onto the plan, meaning that you provided us a dependent enrollment form and provided us with the proof documents, you can actually make those payments online. You don't necessarily have to mail us a check. You can just submit the documentation. Once it's processed, we can notify you. If you want to send us a note and say, if you could give me a call or send me an email, let me know when I can pay my premium, we will do that. Otherwise, we would just generate an invoice and then mail you that invoice. We do have to mail you the invoice. That is one of the things with communications from the health fund, because your benefits are collectively bargained benefits, and it's coming out of negotiations and their signatory employers. We are considered a nonprofit Taft-Hartley pension and health plans, and that means we're governed under ERISA. We follow DOL rules, and that means that we still have to use snail mail to notify you of your health fund benefits. As a courtesy, we can always shoot you an email if you need something quickly, but we still must actually mail you all correspondence. So that's another reason why you want to stay in touch with you, and you also would want to register online, is because then making those dependent premium payments becomes much easier when you can just register, log on, it shows the amount due, you make your payment, and it's just a done deal. Um, as Jennifer and Dawn both mentioned, that in your world there is a lot of retroactivity. I mean, it's just what happens. It's just the way it is. Like they said, there could be various reasons why contributions come in late. And so we definitely encourage you to stay in touch with us, to register, to look online, to see if it's there, because you know when you're working, we don't know when you're working. And so, you know, in order to try to get employers to report timely so that your coverage starts timely and you don't have that retroactive notification. You know, we're not sending you a letter in July that says you have, due to late contributions, you have coverage from January to December. And then you're saying, oh my God, that's so unfair. That's 6 months of coverage that I didn't get. You know, because of, you know, the contracts, the minimum basic agreements, all those things that are negotiated, you know, as they said, it is in stone. It must be applied to the quarter in which you earned the money, even when it comes in late. So it's really crucial to let us know, to keep in touch with us and make sure that you agree that what we have in our system is correct. Um, like they'd said, if worst case scenario, you are notified of retroactive coverage and you did pay outside premiums, our letter does indicate that if you either paid for claims, or should I say medical services, pharmacy services premiums, and you submit that proof of payment within 90 days of our letter, we will be able to reimburse you. Um, but obviously, you know, ideally you would want that coverage to start timely. Um, we do have a couple other programs that I won't go into detail with now, but they are outlined on our website in our SPD. But we have an extended coverage point program that for every writer that earns coverage under the fund, they get at least 1 point, as up to as high as 3 points for that year of coverage based on how much money you actually earned in that earning cycle period. And those points are banked. And once you finally hit a 10-point balance, then if at any time after that you were to lose health fund coverage or be in between, like maybe you're going to lose coverage for 6 months or a year, or 3 quarters, then once you hit that 10-point balance, we would actually start to use those points to extend your coverage. And that's why it's called the extended coverage program. Um, so that is one of a couple of different ways that sometimes writers can eventually extend coverage. Another one is our excess earnings extension. And what that is, for instance, if in the earnings cycle that gave you your current coverage, you had earned 250,000 or more, and then in your earnings cycle to get that next year of coverage, you did not earn the minimum, we would basically say, okay, we're going to take the money that you earned for the coverage that you're just losing and take that 250 and divide it equally between both earning cycles, and we will automatically extend your coverage for another year. It is not banked. It's either you qualified and you need it, so it's granted, or if you made 250 in one earning cycle and then in the next earning cycle you made 75,000, so your coverage renewed again, you're just moving on. It's not banked. It's just it's a kind of a right then and there. If you need it, would be granted. um we also have a two-party team extension that is very similar to that excess earnings extension, but it's not done automatically because we don't know when writers are part of a team. So if you're part of a bona fide two-party writing team, and as a team you equally split 250,000 or more, and one or both of you are not going to earn it in their next cycle, if you give us a call and contact the eligibility department, we will ask you for copies of your contracts and things. We'll have Jennifer's team take a look at it and validate it to see whether or not you would actually qualify for that extension. And if so, then that would be granted to you as well. And then the third thing that I'd like to mention is just that there is such a coverage called certified retiree health. And that is tied into your retiring with the pension plan, having a required number of qualified quarters, which we call health fund quarters, your 4 quarters for every year that you're covered, and at least being age 60. And so if you have met that formula, you're at least 60 when you decide to retire with the pension plan, and you have at least 68 qualified quarters accumulated through your lives of hit writing, then you would qualify for what we call our certified retiree health coverage. And that coverage in essence would be in effect from that point forward. You're still able to actually work once you retire from the pension plan, earn the minimum, and go back on earn coverage again. So if you do happen to retire as a certified retiree, you could then go back and forth between earned and retiree and earned coverage. However, if you retire without meeting that 68 qualified quarter minimum, you would not be deemed a certified retiree, and you would not be able to earn it after the fact. So it is very important that you give retirement a lot of serious thought. If you're close to that 68 quarter number, if there's any way that you think that you can, get, a couple more years of coverage under your belt, if you're only maybe 4 8 quarters short before making that decision, it would, it's really, a major thing to think about. So that's, just something else to think about down the road, is that there is certified health coverage, certified retiree health that you may qualify for over the course of your lifetime, as a health fund and pension plan participant. If there's any questions that you guys have about your coverage, about when you would be eligible, about what your earning cycle is, questions about dependent coverage, any of those things, please by all means give the eligibility department a call. My team and I are there to help you in any way. And if we discover that it is something that you really need to talk with employer compliance about, we'll gladly transfer you and connect you.
Looks like we've lost Paula briefly. Paula, can you hear us? Maybe Chris, you want to go ahead and jump in here?
Sure. Paula, did you have anything to add? It looks like you're back. No. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the pension plan offered through the WGA. The pension plan does not require any enrollment. Once an employer of the plan has contributed on your behalf through WGA covered employment, you automatically become a participant. And in that process, you do not need to contribute any of your own money. The pension plan is entirely employer funded. The employers currently contribute 10% on your behalf, and for every dollar that you earn as their employee. However, only 6% of that 10% will count towards your pension benefits. You may be wondering, what kind of pension benefits are we talking about? Well, the WGA plan works much like Social Security, where it's a formula-based benefit. Basically, you accrue a benefit based on the earnings that you have earned throughout the course of your career. So once you reach retirement age, you receive a lifetime benefit. It's a monthly benefit, and it's paid out dependent upon what's been contributed on your behalf, keeping in mind various ceilings on benefits that are payable, as well as ceilings on contribution amounts. You can retire once you meet the requirements of being A, vested, you're at least 52 years old, and you file a retirement application with the plan. The last part's very important. It's something just to keep in mind, because once you get to the point where you think you're about ready to retire, you definitely want to give us a call a couple months in advance of that, just to make sure that there's enough time to complete the application and file it with us in order to meet the deadline for the retirement date that you had in mind. In order to become vested in the retirement plan, you have to earn 5 qualified years under the pension plan. You earn a qualified year by earning $5,000 in covered compensation in a calendar year, or 8 credited weeks in a calendar year. So once you've earned that $5,000 in 5 years, you would then become vested, at which point, once you reach retirement age, you can retire at any time. Now, the sooner you take the money prior to age 63, the more of a reduction we're going to put on your benefits. And you can certainly give us a call at any time if you want to discuss benefit amounts, what you may be eligible for. Also, those benefits amounts are available on our website at any time. We have a very excellent pension plan estimator. And that estimator, you can type in what you think your earnings are going to be in the future, and it will actually provide a monthly benefit based on what you've provided us, as well as what we have in our records to date. In addition, on our website, you can run a statement at any time to see what you've currently accrued towards your pension and what that pension payout would be at various ages. The formula for the benefits is basically we take the employer contributions that are not above any Internal Revenue Code ceilings, and we multiply that by 48.3%, and that's your annual benefit if you were to take it at the highest paying option. There are a variety of different options available to you. You can take a pension benefit that would pay for your lifetime as well as maybe your significant other's lifetime, or another person that you would choose. Just bear in mind that if we're paying a benefit for your lifetime as well as their lifetime, we're going to reduce your benefit for their age. So if they're much younger than you, the reduction is going to be steeper than if they're about the same age or just a few years younger than you, or if they're older than you. I would highly recommend at the time you're thinking about retiring, or even long before you're thinking about retiring, just to give the pension department a call. We'd be happy to go over what you've accrued to date and take a look at what you might need to earn to meet your retirement goals in the future. And you can take a look at how retiring at various ages might impact you and where you think you're going to retire. The plan, and this is a very important point that I want to stress, the plan does subsidize early retirement at age 63. So from age 65 to age 63, there is no reduction in your benefits for age. If you're younger than 63, the reduction is 1/3% per month that you're younger than 63, and then 0.5% per month that you're younger than age 55. So obviously, if you retire at 52, you're going to receive about half of what you would have received at age 63. On top of that, something to keep in mind is if you wait beyond 65, then there is an actuarial increase to your benefit of 0.8% per month until you reach 70, and then 1.2% per month, 70 and thereafter. All of this is a lot to keep in mind now when a lot of you are probably just starting out. So like I said, I highly recommend that you give the pension department a call at some point in your career, and we'd be happy to go over the pension benefits in great detail and let you know just what you'd be eligible for and what you what you might need to do in order to meet your goals. There are several different options available under the plan, and I'm just going to touch on them briefly. The highest paying option is what's called a 5-year certain in life annuity. A 5-year certain in life annuity is guaranteed for 5 years or your lifetime, whichever is longer. So if you live for 20 years beyond that, the plan's going to keep continuing to pay your benefits throughout your lifetime. However, upon your passing, the benefits would stop. If you elected this option and then you passed within the first 5 years, then the remainder of that 5-year period would be paid out to a beneficiary. The plan also has what's called joint survivor options. These options are payable at your joint annuitant, which is going to be another person other than you, such as a significant other, or somebody else that you want to provide for upon your passing. They can be paid 50% of what you were being paid, 2/3 of what you were being paid, 75%, or 100% of what you're being paid. But the more you pass on to them, the less you're going to collect during your lifetime. So there's a lot to think about when you're retiring. And for some of you, that might be a long ways off, so you may not be thinking about it now. But it is a good thing to keep in mind, these questions to keep in mind as you're working. And you definitely want to reach out to us, as I've continued to say. Another thing I want to stress is that once you've become a participant in the plan, which happens in the year following the year we receive contributions on your behalf, you definitely want to keep us up to date on your beneficiaries and your address. So even if you've stopped working in a guild capacity, you definitely want to keep us up to date on your address, because you may still be eligible for pension benefits, or at the very least, if you never qualified for pension benefits, there may be a death benefit available to your beneficiary upon your passing. Which brings me to the original point, which is you definitely want to keep an updated beneficiary designation form on file from the plan in order to ensure that upon your passing, we know who to pay. Sometimes it can get kind of messy if there is no beneficiary designation form on file. And we definitely just want to ensure that who you desire to be paid is the person that does get paid. Likewise, if say you've elected a spouse as your beneficiary and then you go through a divorce, you want to make sure you update your beneficiary if you no longer want to have that ex-spouse on file as your beneficiary. These are things a lot of people don't think about, because maybe they've worked for 10 years in a guild capacity and then they stopped working in a guild capacity and maybe their retirement is a few years off. But it's something that to ensure that your loved ones are provided for, you just want to keep up to date. The pension plan is a monthly benefit, so there are no loan provisions under the plan. So you can't borrow against it, and there's no cash value to the pension plan. It's just an accrued monthly benefit that you're eligible for once you reach retirement age. As I said, if you pass prior to collecting benefits, a pre-retirement death benefit may be available. So if you, for instance, have a spouse, that spouse could collect a monthly benefit for their lifetime if you become vested prior to your passing. Other than that, I want to save time for questions, so I'm going to pass the mic back to Andrew, and he can field the questions that may have come in.
Great. Thank you so much. And so now we can just use the remainder of this meeting to go through questions. I know we've got some in the chat. Deb, if you're on, I'm kind of wondering, should we take this through like the hand raise function, or should we just take questions from the chat?
I think we can do both. I can start with a question that came in earlier that was, and forgive me if it did happen to get answered in a different way, which was if there's a statute of limitations on filing a claim.
On filing a claim, meaning missing contributions?
Let me check if I can. Can I ask a question?
And Deb, maybe if you want to talk about how to use the hand raise function.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
I think I've unmuted my question. Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was my question. Yes, that was.
Oh, perfect.
The statute of limitations on missing contributions.
Okay, so if you're reviewing your information and you realize that 3 years ago you worked for a company, you did covered services, and you see that nothing's been reported, you would contact employer compliance, and when you contact us and we review the information and determine that contributions are due, that's the point of discovery. So we have 4 years to collect on that. It's not when the services were done, but it's at the point of discovery. So definitely contact us if you think something for sure, okay, and we will pursue that.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Cameron Fay. Cameron, I'll go ahead and let you unmute if you'd like to ask it.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the paid parental leave, the new program. Is there any information or update about that?
I can answer. Jennifer, do you want to?
No, I was going to say if Paula's still with us, Paula could answer that.
I didn't.
Paula
sure
is trying to get back on. Somehow she was kicked off of the Zoom meeting, and she's trying to get back on right now.
I can answer.
Okay.
Jennifer, it's Lisa. Okay. Hi.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Anderson. I'm an assistant executive director at the Writers Guild, and I am also a trustee on the at the Pension Plan and Health Fund. I know you guys know that the Writers Guild is a completely different organization from the Pension Plan and Health Fund, and the Health Fund and Pension Plan are run by a board of directors made of trustees that are half guild trustees and half company trustees. So I'm one of the guild trustees. Anywho, we've been working for the last several months. A subcommittee of the Benefits Committee has been working for the last several months putting together how this new benefit will work. There's nothing else like this in the country. So we've had to literally create it from whole cloth. And the final details haven't yet been approved by the board of directors. They will be in next month's meeting, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then we will be able to announce to the world how the whole process will be working, how the whole benefit will work. So I'm hopeful that y'all like it, but I can't speak to give you all the details now because the entire board hasn't voted on it yet. So sorry.
Right. No, that's correct. It still hasn't been finalized, but once everything's finalized, there will be lots of communication from this office, mailers, information on our website, all of that.
And from the guild too, we'll be sending out something. You'll get more information, then you'll know what to do with. Okay.
Dan, I'm gonna bring up Dan Signa. Got a question?
Hi, thank you guys for doing this. I have three, I think, very quick questions, 2 for health and 1 for pension. The health questions are the excess earnings extension. Does that kick in first before your points are used, or will points be used before that kicks in? That's question 1. And question 2 is dependent premiums payable on the website by credit card, which is great. For years and years, though, it's been that way, and there's no auto pay function. And I would please ask that you guys put that in. I think you'll get the money faster and more regularly, and people aren't going to drop off their insurance. Their family won't drop off insurance because they missed something. So it seems like something that would be great to add. So those are the two health questions. And then the retirement question is, looking at the website, it seems like the maximum monthly benefit is 13,000. Is that correct? And does that number go up each year, or how does that work? Thank you.
So I can answer that last question while we wait for Paula. The ceiling on your pension benefits is adjusted for your age. So, and it's adjusted for your date of birth. So it's going to be unique to you individually. It's essentially, it's the table from the Internal Revenue Code's 415 B as of 2007. So if you're at risk of hitting that Internal Revenue Code ceiling from '07, you can definitely give us a call and we can let you know what the ceiling is for you in your particular instance.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next is from, I'm sorry, looks like Leah Villalobos. Or Legia.
Hi. Sorry about that. And I'm sorry that if you covered this, but Zoom kicked me out. But I was curious. So I also get health and pension from teaching. And I want to make sure that one doesn't cancel the other. Like if I'm getting health and pension from the WGA and I'm getting health and pension from the university that where I teach, do they work completely separate and I will be getting the full amount from both health and pensions? Because I heard that health and pension also has to do something with how much Social Security you get. Like it's reduced based on the amount of Social Security. Can somebody please explain that if it wasn't covered already? I'm sorry.
In terms of the pension benefit, it's not impacted by any outside benefits you may be accruing. If our benefits impact what they will pay you, that's something that you would have to ask them. But in terms of our pension, we don't adjust your benefit for what you're going to get from an outside pension benefit, a pension benefit that's outside of an employer of this plan. So if you do have a pension through an employer of this plan, you do want to give us a call and talk to us about it directly. But if it's a pension plan that's from teaching, it wouldn't be impacted by this plan.
Okay, thank you.
I just am going to bring up Dan again quickly because he just needed his second part of his question answered. So Dan, if you want to just ask that, and then.
And I just wanted to make sure, I think Paula wanted to add something, but she's muted. So I don't know if she wanted to add something to my question or something else. But you're muted.
Okay. Hi. What I was gonna say was, and I also got kicked out. I just got back in. With regards to your health fund coverage too, because you have coverage, because of the university that you teach at. If it is a PPO plan, then there is also coordination of benefits between the two plans when you have medical and dental claims that you have to submit. And so annually, with your health fund coverage, we always ask that you complete a coordination of benefits form and submit it to the claims department that tells them about the other health insurance coverage that you have. And I would imagine that your health insurance from the university would like for you to do the same. And there are standard rules throughout the insurance industry on how they determine who is primary and who's secondary. And so the claims, the benefits can be coordinated between the two companies. And so I just wanted to mention that to you as well.
Yeah, I actually called about that when I started teaching because I said, can I get off the WGA plan so I can save those points and use my teaching until I'm done with teaching? And I was actually told that I could not do that I could not get
So
off of this plan.
are you you were covered based on the extended coverage points?
No, I was
You
covered
meant
based
you
on what
said
I had
save
earned.
points. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so your coverage is negotiated. You know, I mean, you know, like that's the whole point of your guild and you know them negotiating benefits for you all and everything. And when you are working for a signatory employer, they don't have the choice of not submitting, you know, contributions on your behalf for work that you did that is subject to contribution. If you earned that eligibility, it is in place. You know, isn't any way that you can say I want to waive that or not use that coverage. That is correct.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about waiving it. I was thinking about banking it. So that
Oh
this
yeah,
year
no.
I was told that I couldn't do that. And so that's why I'm confused a little bit about the form. Because the reason
Yeah,
why I
no.
haven't been submitting the form is because I was told that I had to use the WGA insurance as long as I had the WGA insurance.
So again, there's coordination of benefits between the two insurance companies. So you could actually your providers can actually submit claims to both your primary and your secondary payers.
Got it.
And
Okay.
oftentimes after you've satisfied whatever annual deductibles and things that you might have to satisfy, you may find with coordination of benefits that you end up with less out-of-pocket expenses by coordinating between the two plans. And
Got it.
so that's why we do encourage you to fill out that form and submit that information. Claims can be submitted 2 years from the date of service. So you may even have claims, you know, that could be reprocessed, going back as far as 2 years and reprocessed with the coordination of benefits. And that might be actually a benefit to you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, next question is from
I was going to let it.
Andro.
No, wait. I was going to let Dan ask his second question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just, there was a question about whether the the excess earnings extension kicks in before your points or if the points are used up first.
It will kick in before your points. So if you happen to be one of those writers that falls under that scenario that I talked about, where you know, in your last earnings cycle you made 250,000 or more, but in your current earnings cycle you are not going to or haven't met that minimum, it will automatically kick in. And the logic is already in our system that basically, you know, it kind of goes through the rundown and the excess earnings comes before, you know, we would look to see if you had points under the extended coverage plan that you would use. So yes, it would come first.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, sorry to try and erase you there, Dan. Now the next question is coming from Andra Whipple.
Hi, I have just a couple questions. My first one is maybe small. If you have less than 10 points, you know, say someone has 3 points or whatever, is there anything you can do with those points? Like if you're about to lose coverage, or do you have to just wait till they're 10?
So you must meet the 10-point minimum you have to get to 10 once.
Okay.
Before you can start to use the points. The reason being there is a point equivalency to coverage, which is for the PPO plan, 2.5 points per quarter. 4 quarters is a year of coverage. If you were to earn coverage based on satisfying the earnings minimum, you would get 1 year. So the concept of designing this program as a writer must first accumulate 10 points before they're eligible. However, you only have to meet that minimum once in your lifetime. So let's say that you finally made it to 10 points, you lost coverage, and you used 3/4 worth of your points before you went back on to earn coverage. So you have 2.5 points left. and then you earn coverage. And so let's say you made, because of the amount of money you made, you made 2 points. Now you have 4.5 points. If you lose that coverage, you will automatically go on extended coverage and use the points that you have left. So you only have to satisfy 10 one time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
My other question is, I think it's a question that somebody else asked too. I have a team member who's asking me, and maybe Lisa, that you're the best person to answer this. I have team members who are asking me about if we're doing anything in regards to people falling off of insurance because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And my member specifically asked me if we know how many members are set to lose their health insurance because of the 2020 shutdown. I know we may not be able to calculate that, and so that's the kind of bulk of the question.
Okay, first, forgive me. I have to hold my dog, or else he's going to bark.
Oh, I forgive you.
The other one might, so we're cross our fingers here. First of all, we are keeping a really close eye on how many people are falling out of coverage. That is something that the fund close track of. How many people lose, or what Paul has referred to as earned coverage. How many people have fallen out of coverage with respect to losing their extended care points. Those numbers have been pretty consistent for years, not just in this time frame, but for years. They go up and down a little bit, but they're all around the same point. We're keeping a close eye on it because we just don't know if things are going to change. I mean, we've been, knock wood, maybe writers will continue to be lucky and continue to work for the most part. It's not unlike actors or directors or crew members where when everything shut down, their employment stopped. Thank God. I feel terrible for them, but thank God writers didn't, for the most part. I mean, certainly a lot of people were negatively impacted by the pandemic and production shutting down and companies deciding not to continue with projects in the moment. But at this moment in time, the last information I got was just a couple of weeks ago. It looks like we're at that point where it's consistent with how it's been in the past. That said, we unilaterally, unfortunately, the Guild staff leadership can't unilaterally say we're going to extend coverage. Like I mentioned before, what happens at the health fund and the pension plan is a joint decision-making process with management trustees and Guild trustees. And believe me, if it was up to us alone, this would have been taken care of a long time ago. We brought this up before negotiation for the MBA last summer, during negotiations, and since. And we brought it up in negotiations, then we brought it up, in fact, at the health fund meetings. We have quarterly meetings. The health fund meetings last June, and the management trustees, I proposed basically just extending it starting, I think, the fourth quarter into the first quarter of this year. And they proposed something extraordinarily cumbersome and complicated that was just not workable at all. It required, writers proving that they lost their jobs because of the pandemic. You had to give documentation to prove this. It was just a bunch of hooey, and we didn't agree to it. But we're continuing to talk. It's the long way around. We're continuing to talk. We're keeping a close eye on this as best we can. And if we need to push the issue further, we certainly will. But we have to do that at the health fund, at a trustee meeting. Does that answer your question?
You totally did. My last question is, I'm pretty sure that this person is going to want to follow up. So who's the best person for them to contact to ask more questions about this kind of thing?
They can email me. It's landerson@wga.org. Sorry about my dog here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so next question is from Bill Brown. I'm going to ask Bill to mute.
Hey, thank you guys so much for doing this. This is really helpful. I have a question, which is, let's say I decided I'm 64 and I'm going to retire, and everything's in place. I'm qualified for medical, all of that, and I fill out my form and I retire, and then whoops, 2 years after retirement, I perform some services that are covered by the guild. And how does the pension, health, and welfare element of that affect me if I've formally retired?
So in terms of your pension, there's not a problem there. If you retire prior to 65, the pension plan requires that you do not work in the month of your retirement, but then you can return to work after that. And any earnings that you accrue after that point, as long as you're not at the plan ceiling, can go towards a second retirement, which you can take as early as 65.
And what's the plan ceiling? How does that work? Do you reach a point where you can't get a higher pension no matter how much money you've made?
Yes, there is that point. And it's on an individual by individual basis because it's based on your date of birth and the date that you retire. So we can give you hypothetical ceilings if you call the plan office. We're happy to do that.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have one thing to add to that as well. If you are looking to retire, have your 68 quarters, your 17 years that qualifies you for certified health coverage, before you actually do retire, you may want to contact employer compliance and have us do an audit of your career, because if you retire with the 68 and at some one of the companies you work for is audited and it's determined that what was reported is not correct and it's removed, you'll lose your certified status and you won't be able to remedy that. So if you have any questions on how this works, making sure that everything that's reported properly on your behalf has been paid in, you might want to do that before you actually retire.
Can I ask a question? Just poke my little finger in here now. Does everybody? I don't know if everybody knows what certified retiree coverage actually means. Somebody want to explain it before I botch it up?
So, yeah. So in case anybody didn't hear my description when I gave it previously, to be deemed a certified retiree for health fund coverage, the three things have to happen. You have to have at least accumulated 68 qualified quarters. That is 4 quarters per year of every year that you had health fund coverage. So it's 17 or 65 quarters. You have to be at least 60 and retire from the pension plan. So those three things have to be in place. In other words, if you are 60 or 62 and you don't have 68 quarters and you retire, you will not be a certified retiree. You will not be entitled to it. And even if you go back to work after, you won't earn any more quarters. So you have to earn that, you have to meet that minimum prior to retirement. So let's say you do it right at 60. Then between 60 and 65, the plan is still your primary insurance because you're not old enough yet for Medicare. But once you become Medicare eligible and you are on CRH coverage, the plan will expect for you to enroll in Medicare A and B. And even if you don't do Plan B, we will pay premiums, pay your claims as if you did have B. So it is critical. What we also do as just a help to you, if you're under 60, for those of you that are under 65, 3 months before your 65th birthday, we actually will send you a packet that's basically kind of called, 65 and you know what happens when you turn 65, and it gives you all the information that you would need to know and understand about the health fund coverage and Medicare and what you need to do. And then we actually follow up with a phone call about 2 weeks after we mailed that packet to you to just make sure you got it, see if you have any questions about what's in the packet, because we really want you guys to understand and know how it all balances and how it's coordinated, and timing is critical and all those other things. But again, by keeping in touch with us, by logging onto the website, all those different things, you'll be able to know. Also, your health fund summary contribution statement that Jennifer spoke about earlier. We send you, when you're currently covered, we will send you a statement roughly 60 days before your earning cycle ends to let you know what your status is. Have you yet met the minimum? Do you qualify for the excess earnings extension? You know, how many qualified quarters do you have towards certified retiree? All of that information. And it also lists in detail all of the contributions that have been reported in your earning cycle, along with project titles that if we have them, etc. So it's, as Jennifer pointed out, it's really important that you do definitely check your mail when we send you stuff, because a lot of times we're sending you very helpful, important information. And you know, if you take a look at that statement, and maybe you have one more draft or something to turn in. And that would be kind of your reminder, oh, I better get this in before this date so that I meet the minimum and I'm good. So we do try to, you know, do as much to help you guys stay proactive, you know, and knowing ahead of time what your situation is. But again, you know, when you're thinking about retirement, you always want to make sure you've got that, you know, if possible, you know, that you've got that 68 qualified quarters. And I always tell people, honestly, like Jennifer said, because audits can happen at any time that could change something, or even the employer could do their own auditing and come back and say, hey, we want a refund for something that we made contributions on. And so I always kind of say it's actually a little bit safer sometimes if you can have, you know, instead of 68 exactly, you know, maybe you have 72 quarters, or you know, 76 quarters, you know, or 100 quarters instead of just exactly 68. But again, we understand, you know, how challenging it can be sometimes, you know, for people in this industry. So, you know, we do understand that.
All right. Looks like our next question is from.
And sorry, just one more go back. I just wanted to also let you guys know, with this plan, certified retiree health is the same exact coverage as you had as an earned rider. I know there are other plans that they kind of make a slightly different health plan once they go into retiree health. At the PWGA, we do not do that. It's the same coverage.
All right. Next question is from Kristen Tucker.
Hi, I have two pretty simple questions. The first is, when there's a break in health coverage and it's reinstated, do the health insurance cards, dental cards, member numbers, all that remain? So what I have now will be valid when I have insurance again, or is it all?
Yeah, we don't, the cards don't have like expiration dates and things like that on them. So your card would be good. You know, your ID number, your health fund ID number is not going to change, you know? And so it's just all a matter of us, you know, submitting all of your information or all the eligibility files to the vendors, you know, that we submit on either a daily or a weekly basis. So once you're reinstated, you know, if it's more than 1/4 of a lag, we automatically send you a new set just in case, you know, for some reason you chucked it or misplaced it, but it is the same card and it would be good.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, are the years required to be vested in the pension program consecutive or just total time? You might have said that and I missed it.
No, it's a good question. I don't believe I did mention. So they do not have to be consecutive. If your earnings are older, prior to 2000, or prior to 1998, then there were provisions in the plan which did require that they be at least without a permanent break at some point, which was 3 break years or 5 break years, depending. At this point, though, they do not need to be consecutive. You can earn those 5 years at any point after 1998.
Next question is from Julie.
Hi. I just wanted to find out who I should speak to. I'd like to make a phone call to speak to someone about the fact that my employer paid my contributions late and that delayed my coverage. So I ended up paying for private insurance and had some other expenses. And I just want to talk it through because I don't know if I qualify for reimbursements.
Okay. You would want to contact the eligibility department.
And is there a specific person?
Anybody on my team can help you. I'm happy to also help you as well. When we sent you your eligibility letter, if it was a late notice, then that letter did say within 90 days from the date of the letter, you needed to submit the proof of payment. But why don't you reach out to me if you want to send me an email. My email is pjones@wgaplans.org. And if you want to shoot me an email, I would be happy to take a look at it and give you a call back so we can talk about it further.
That'd be great because I never got that letter. So, because I
wasn't
a member at that time because I didn't become a full member. I was earning before I became a full member.
Yeah, so that's okay actually. But yes, now I'm even more curious. So please shoot me an email and I'll definitely give you a call and we'll look into it further.
Great, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's a question from the chat from Luther. He asks, hypothetical question, what if a writer earns 45K in a qualifying quarter? 40K of it goes to qualifying them for coverage. What happens to the remaining 5K? Does it roll over to the next qualifying cycles within a calendar year?
No, it does not. However, whatever your earnings are in that earnings cycle period, they qualify you for 1 year of health fund coverage. However, what they also do, depending on how much you earned, is they could also give you additional extended coverage points, or if you were a high, the 250,000 or more, you could possibly get another year of coverage. But at the end of the day, whether you earn 40,000 or you earn 140,000, if it's within that specific earning cycle, it gives you 1 year of coverage. I imagine that Lisa could talk a little bit more. Lisa, you could talk a little bit more about the fact of kind of like what it costs really to provide coverage and how we have like this balance of high earners and medium earners and low earners and how that all works.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we have what's sometimes called a Robin Hood plan, where the amount of money that you have to earn, the eligibility threshold, is a lot less than what it actually costs to pay for a year of coverage. The last time I looked was a couple of years ago, and if I remember correctly, it was around, if it were like a dollar-to-dollar match, whatever, I think you would have to earn like $185,000 to pay for a year of coverage just for yourself. So we don't obviously have that plan. That's not how writers work. It's not how this system is, our program is designed. So the threshold is tied to the network prime time 60-minute story and teleplay minimum. That's why when Paula said it's 39,858, that's just what it is now. Next year it'll go up, or actually in May 2nd, it'll go up. So that's how it works. So there's no sort of rolling over. So people who earn more than that, it basically just goes into the big pot of money that pays for all of our coverage, all of your coverage and your dependents coverage, and it basically goes into that general fund up to those specific ceilings. And all those ceilings are sometimes caps that folks referred to before. All of these things are negotiated in the MBA, in Article 17 in the MBA. If you get bored one night, if you have insomnia, look it up online, it's there. and the money is, contributions have to be paid when the money is earned or due. Is it earned and paid or due? And which basically means if it's due but they haven't paid you, the contributions are due. They have to be paid in that quarter in which you earned it. So, and all of it is negotiated in collective bargaining, and it's not necessarily how it might not work out for a particular circumstance. Like if you got paid late and you actually needed the contributions, the health coverage later, there's nothing anybody at the fund or anybody on guild staff can do about it, because that's what the parties negotiated in the collective bargaining agreement. So back to your original question, if you earn $45,000, which is a little bit more than $5,000 more than what the eligibility threshold is, it doesn't roll over to the next quarter or the next year. It just goes into the fund to help pay for people's coverage. Does that help? Does it answer your question? Okay.
So next is from Anthony. Has got a question.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to show currently where late pay has been a huge issue. Like, just to be frank, it's a 20th show that is now Disney by way of the merger or the takeover. And they did not pay anyone on the show willingly on time without the guild getting involved. It was a huge hassle, which means that, interest accrued. And my room is curious if the interest that ends up being paid out will go to contributions.
No. No.
No, interest is not reportable, unfortunately.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, Jennifer. Stepped on you.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. This one's from the chat from Stephen. Where or with whom is the guild's pension invested?
The pension investments are handled by the board. Elisa, you might have more insight into that than I do.
I have marginally more insight. One of the we have it. So we have the committee is made. The board is comprised of a bunch of trustees, or we have different committees that make decisions about different things. One of the committees is a finance committee, and that finance committee works with outside financial advisors that help us, invest what are the pension money. It's in a whole bunch of diversified things, which frankly is the reason why our pension plan survived, has done really relatively well this last disastrous year. Relatively speaking, I think we ended up, it was a positive year. Like we earned something like 10%, which is crazy good. But it's typically the goal for the pension investment is to earn 7.5% every year. Sometimes we earn more, sometimes we earn less when there are financial crises like the one that was last year and the one in 2008 with the collapse. Every pension plan in America took a hit in 2008. Ours is as well, but ours survived a lot better because our pension plan is in a really diverse set of investments from financial things. I'm clearly not an expert, so I can't speak to exactly what they are. But if send me an email and I can get you more information about the specific investment portfolios or whatever, if that's your jam. So if you want to email me, I'll do that.
And I will add that the pension performance doesn't directly impact your pension benefits. It does, of course, help fund the pension benefits, but it's not going to, if we take a hit one year, you're not going to see your pension go down.
Okay, I have a question from Crystal.
Hi, I just wanted to ask about something you guys said earlier about the writing team can extend benefits, because I didn't know about that, but I don't have like a forever partner. But if you sell a pilot with someone else, is that count? Like your partners for that project and you call in, or is it like someone you're registered as a like forever partner with?
So Jen, if I'm correct, it's just on that specific contract, they need to be listed as a bona fide two-party writing team on that particular project. And if that team has equally split 250,000, 125,000 each, then one or both team members could be entitled to an extension if they did not earn the minimum in their next earning cycle after that.
That is correct. You don't have to be lifetime team members. It just has to be on the project by project. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
And just
You're
to be
welcome.
clear, it's not on a sale. If you sell a script with someone, there's no contributions on it. There has to be employment attached to it.
Got it.
Yes, if you have a script that you're shopping and you have interest and you have a company willing to buy it, please make sure you negotiate a rewrite or polish so that the writing services and the purchase become reportable. Very important.
Good to know.
Okay, here's a question from the chat from John Sherman. He asks, what happens to health coverage if you retire before you're eligible for qualified retirement coverage? And he further clarified if he is understanding that the basic premises don't retire before 60 if you want to keep your coverage.
So if your goal is to have that certified retiree health, then yes, the goal should be to achieve those 68 qualified quarters before you decide to retire from the pension plan. Mm-hmm. There are many writers that, don't achieve that before they feel like they need to retire. But again, the good thing, like we said before, is, when you retire, if you're younger than 65, they only ask that you don't work for a month, and then you can continue working. And then if you're 65 or older, there's no waiting period, which means you could still continue to work your craft. If you happen to earn the minimum again, then you will have another year of health fund coverage. So that being said, we find that we have often many writers that are still writing, for years, at that capacity. But yeah, the 17 years is required to get that under your belt. That's 68 quarters before you retire with the pension plan, if your goal is to have that certified retiree health coverage in place. I hope that answers the question.
All right, and then we've got another one from the chat. Mike Russo asks, how long do I get my pension when I retire? And if I die, are my heirs entitled to any of it? If yes, how do they get it?
So depending upon what option you pick at the time of your retirement, that's going to determine what your heirs get upon your passing. But the benefit, no matter which option you pick, the benefit is always payable for your lifetime. So you can elect a benefit that pays for your lifetime, as well as another person that you have in mind's lifetime. But you can't necessarily elect an option that would pay for your lifetime, and then it's guaranteed to go to some other entity, no matter who it is. And let me unpack that a little bit, because that's a little bit confusing. So there's a benefit called a 10-year certain in life option. If you elect that option, the benefit is guaranteed for 10 years or your lifetime, whichever is longer. If you outlive that 10-year period, it's just going to keep continuing to pay you. Once you pass, the benefit will stop. But if you pass away before that 10-year period's over, we're going to pay the remainder of those 10 years worth of payments to your beneficiaries, whoever those beneficiaries may be. On the flip side, you can elect a joint survivor option, which would pay for your lifetime and then would pay for one other person's lifetime. So you would have to designate that person at the time of retirement.
Also, I just want to kind of piggyback on that with the health fund coverage side. Let's say, for instance, you happen to be a certified retiree with the health fund, and you picked a joint and survivor option with your, your pension. As Chris said, that person that you picked as a survivor would get paid. Well, if you have a surviving spouse or any surviving dependent children who are under 26, they would be entitled to that survivor retiree health coverage, is what we call survivor health. So if it was a surviving spouse, they would be entitled to it. As long as you were married for at least 2 years at the time that you passed, they would be entitled to it for their lifetime or until they remarry. And your surviving children would be entitled to it until they turn age 26. And even if you're not a retiree, let's say that you're still in your career, and God forbid something happens and you pass. And let's just say, for example, when you passed, there was, let's say, if the writer deceased today and their coverage on ours was currently until the end of this year, and then besides that, maybe they had 30 extended coverage points on the books. Their surviving dependents would be entitled to get the rest of that health fund coverage, which is through the end of this year, and any additional coverage that you had already earned, meaning the extended coverage points or entitlement to excess earnings. All of that they would be entitled to before we would then send them a letter announcing that coverage was going to end and offering them COBRA. With dependents, of course, if it's more than one dependent, the dependent premium would still need to be paid in order to continue dependent coverage. And we would always send out notification to your survivors of the benefits that they are entitled to.
Okay, so I have I think we have 2 more questions. This one's from Ryan. Ryan,
Hi.
you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you. I have a question. It's sort of related to the writing partner thing, but a different angle on it. So I'm a new member, so I haven't yet become eligible, but I've written 2 different scripts on my show with different writing partners. So both are co-writes. So so basically you were saying if you have a writing partner, you have to call in with the writing partner. But if the writing partner on episode 1 is, say, writer A, and then on episode 2 it's writer B, it's inconsistent, right? So does that affect anything in terms of eligibility?
Well, so I guess we need to approach this in 2 different ways, because first of all, each of you guys are individual writers to the health plan. You're each participants, and each of you are going to have contributions to submitted to pension and health, and each of you are required to earn the minimum. Okay, so if Ryan, you earn the minimum for 1 year of coverage, that's great. The only time the team extension comes into play, and I'll just kind of reiterate this again, is if when you met the minimum, when you satisfied the minimum, it was from work that you and one other person as a bona fide writing team did together that generated at least $250,000 as a team, 125 each, split equally. It is only in that instance, and only if one or both of you don't meet the minimum in your next cycle, that team extension would even come into play. And that's when you would be calling my department to see if you qualify for that extension. Other than that, if it's, if we're not talking about that 2-party team making at least $250,000 for that project, the team stuff doesn't even come into play.
Right. If you're a writer working on a series and in one episode you and teleplay yourself. The next episode, you have a partner. Then you write one on your own. Then you have a different partner on the fourth episode or whatever. It doesn't really matter the makeup. What matters is that you're accumulating enough earnings to meet the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here because we've hit 8 o'clock and it looks like we've gotten most of the questions answered. If there's anything outstanding, just to kind of like help sort things through, I've got my email in the chat. So please, if you didn't get your question answered, send me an email and I'll help follow up. I just want to say a huge thank you to the folks from the Health Fund. Thank you to Lisa. Thank you to everybody who joined tonight. I hope you got a lot out of this. And please, we appreciate the feedback. So anything we could do better next time, please let me know. And otherwise, we hope to see you all for the next one. So thanks so much.
We're looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Yes, please call us.
Please stay in
questions.
contact. Yeah.
Please call us, definitely.
And with that, just want to wish everyone a good night. Be safe, be well, and we'll all talk soon.
Thank you.
That's great. Have a great night.
Bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Night.
Bye, everybody.